Hi, everybody. It's Megan. I wanted to make a quick announcement before you watch the rest of last night's recorded session. You can reach me at any time. I'm happy to troubleshoot, help problem solve. I'm also happy just to be a thought partner and a listening ear. So please feel free to reach out if you ever need anything. My email address you'll see there. And I hope to see you at some of the drop-in sessions that are happening on Thursday, tomorrow, and on Sunday. Bye, everybody.
I might do a quick housekeeping real quick. So Megan set up a website on her website for us and so she's going to post like the videos from different conversations and some like advanced videos for folks to watch, especially for the office hours. And so what the goal of those, and she can explain a little probably better than I, like, is to kind of do a prompt and then we'll come with questions to the office hours and the open office hours. And see, this is 8 o'clock at night. So that's what's like on Thursday. So the idea is like to come with your specific questions. And then the workshops are like to skill build. And then we'll also have a family workshop where it's skill build for the kids. And then how do the parents kind of help pair what you're learning to support the child. So we're really excited about the ideas that we've, they came out of our conversations. So the two parent caregiver conversations that we had in August was the germination for these workshops. And then we partnered with Megan to come up with the kind of content and, hopefully folks will be able to attend and feel free to drop off or join whenever you can. Whenever we're hosting these, we realize we're parents that, things don't work as smoothly as we intend sometimes. But I'm going to pass it to Megan so we can get going.
Thanks, Joy. Hi, everybody. Also, just so you know, we're recording this. No, not to hold any evidence or stories against you or to use like when your kids get older, just kidding. But just that way we know people have kids, families, things happening in their life. So if you need to hop off or if you're missing an event, don't worry, we're gonna record it and no one's gonna see it but your team. It'll be in that password protected area of my website. So it's still private. Just know that there's gonna be people on your team who are not here who have access to it too. All right. You ready to do this? Usually we start with the Zoom overview, but I feel like you all are pros. Like things you thought you'd never be proficient at. I am going to share my screen. I want to encourage you tonight also to use the chat box, pick up the microphone. I want this to be really active and be something that's for you and something that we're doing rather than just like getting more of an active learning experience. Starting off, can everybody see my screen? Yay, we did it. So this is Beyond Clorox Wipes and Wine, tips and tools for caregivers with learners at home. I am going to be one of your lead learners. I get to be partners in crime with Joy, which is super fun. But I am a national board certified teacher. I taught 4th and 5th grade in Tampa, Florida, and was the Florida Teacher of the Year in 2010, and then did what every logical person does, and they trade their flip-flops for snow boots and move out of the state. And I moved to Western Massachusetts to work at Mount Holyoke College, and then dove into the parenting world. I became a stepmama of 4, and am also now a mama of 1. So I have 5 kids. So we are in the thick of remote learning also. So I'm not coming to this just as an educator, but also as someone who has kids 18 and 1 all at home all the time. So I'm right there with you. We're in it. I was working at Mount Holyoke College and then worked for a nonprofit. And then this spring decided um, that I want to be a female entrepreneur and go full time in my consulting work. And that brings me to my work here with you all. So I work full time in figuring out ways to support parents, caregivers, families, and kids and empower them around their own learning. And that's my business, Tailored Learning Supports for Families. I also have a side passion around women in leadership, and that's Monday Moxie. So that is my world now, aside from my 5 kids. So want to start now by asking you, how's it going? Go ahead, pick up the mic.
Yeah. That wine looks great. I think it's just like from my side, it's been, I have 3 kids, obviously a dog and some animals, but it's just been really, really hard. And I've not been at UCS very long either. So I think I was in the office for 2 weeks before we were kind of kicked out. So that's also been kind of a challenge too. So trying to learn and meet people as well as managing kids. And my youngest is 18 months almost now. So, and a 4th grader. So 4th grader to 18 months.
So lots of transitions for you, Marie. And I feel you on the 18 months. Cora's 18 months, or she will be 18 months in a few weeks.
Yeah, it's about a few weeks. April.
Yeah, April. We're in the climbing phase in our house. Everything is a jungle gym.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for jumping on the mic, Marie. Anyone else want to share? No pressure. Just want to send out the invitation.
Hi, I'll go next. I'm Christy. I have a 12-year-old and a soon-to-be 10-year-old. So I'm definitely not in the like climbing all over things phase, thankfully. But it comes with its own challenges. You know, they both have their like Zoom schedules every day to manage. And I think what's one of the hardest things right now is they don't have lunch at the same time. And that's such a silly, small thing. But when it means that like at 11:15, I have to go make lunch for one. And then at like 12:30, I have to make lunch for another one. I feel like I'm just struggling to get blocks of time to focus.
Then who's making your lunch, Christy?
I like to eat right in the middle there. So it's like, I end up eating like 3 or 0 lunches on any given day.
I just want to recognize and hold space for the fact that you all have a lot on your plate right now as professionals and as parents and caregivers. So just want to recognize that you have a lot going on. The picture up is an actual photo from my house in April. Just kidding. But know that even in our house, so I'm a Florida teacher of the year. I married a Massachusetts teacher of the year. It's super nerdy. And we are both educators and we've still been on the struggle bus. So if that adds any like sense of relief to you, just know that even educators are in it right now and are trying to figure out solutions for some of the new things that are arising in our daily lives and in our homes. I loved this. This went viral a couple of weeks ago too. The work from home play set. You got to have a little humor. So I want you in the chat box now, and Christy and Marie kicked us off with this, but let's use the chat box just for a moment and think about the past 6, almost 7 months and what describes you. And then also I'd like to add a piece. What are you hoping to walk away with tonight? And I'll give you a few moments to put that in the chat box. And since you're Zoom pros, I don't need to tell you where the chat box is. I love that, Mika. All right, while we're continuing to write our thinking in the chat box, I'd like to encourage someone to pick up the microphone, invite you to pick up the microphone and share a little bit about which one describes you and the not GMO hybrid. Which one describes you and what are you hoping to walk away with tonight?
I'll go since I added all four, but because these are all four in different times. So the extreme conditions, I mean, I don't think I have to go through all of them, but I have three at home, three not at home. So I have one in college and 9, 8, 6, 20, and 22. And the little ones for school, this has been the extreme conditions because they are all home. My husband and I are both home, and they all have different schools. And I think it was Christy who was talking about the different lunch schedules. We have the different lunch schedules. So I learned to have them pack their lunch at night, like we're going somewhere. So you can just go in the refrigerator or wherever and get your lunch box, because I can't be cooked during the day. And I am lucky to have gotten these past 3 months because I could have just gone plumb out of my mind with all of the stuff that's going on. And I think most people would know, like my youngest has Down syndrome. So dealing with someone that has, more needs than others at times for education and doing this distance learning, I actually took off for him this week because I have two girls that was not getting the same attention and they needed help too with their work. So I just had to say, well, we're not going to come to school this week. I'm going to focus on my other two. We're going to get them organized, set up, settled. So, I don't want them to fall behind because I have to sit with him all day online. And so I just made my own schedule. But in all of these, I think I've been all of these at some point in time. Right now, I don't know what I am, but I'm just still surviving. So
Thanks for kicking us off, Mika. And also sharing a fabulous tip on the pre-packaging lunches. Mika, that's such a great idea. I know one thing we've tried to do is have like a chunk of time on Sunday afternoons where we just work as a family and dig in on pre-packaging those lunches for the week. Thanks for sharing that tip. All right, so looks like we have a lot of bamboo. Hoping to get tips. Yeah, particularly packing lunches at night, genius. And it sounds like someone else was unmuting the microphone. So go ahead and hop in.
I was saying, I also on Sundays, we usually will get like a lot of fruits and stuff, and I make the kids bag the fruits so that they can kind of stay out of my way while we get other stuff done and try to meal prep for the week if possible, because that's a mess and it's only me at home. So my husband's not normally around, so it's trying to do everything on my own, which is not great. But
Yeah, great tip, Marie. And hopefully you're finding some time for yourself too, since you're doing all of that on your own. So thank you for sharing and reflecting a little bit on what describes you right now, what you're hoping to walk away with from this session. I wanted to share some of my hopes of what you will walk away with tonight. One, we're going to talk about logistics about the next few months and how to access resources and supports. Two, a couple of like big umbrella things to keep in mind so you're not so hard on yourself. And then three, we're going to talk about strategies in two buckets. The overarching question for the strategies: how do we stay productive with our jobs and support our kids while they are learning at home without everyone pulling their hair out? And around two topics, those are buckets: scheduling strategies and independent work strategies. I also want to share there is no like one size fits all. And so what I've done is curated some ideas from some of the best educators and mamas and daddies and parents that I know, and I'm sharing them with you all tonight. Also want to recognize that you all have a lot of expertise yourself. So want to hold some time and encourage you all also to share other ideas and strategies in the chat box or pick up the microphone, because as a collective and as a group that can collaborate together, we can come up with even more great ideas. And we're going to do that all in like 45 minutes. All right. Our flow for tonight, the workflow, we're going to look at some logistics. Joy was mentioning earlier the website where you're going to have some videos and some other resources. I'm going to share some ideas, and then we're going to have some time at the end to digest some ideas and also network and collaborate with some of your colleagues here in the room. So processing pause. Any questions, thoughts, or comments before we move on? All right. So we've used the pre-assessment data that Joy has shared with me, and also that we sent out to kind of navigate and create our path tonight. And I want to start with realizing and putting at the center of our attention that we do have some celebrations, and these were taken just from that pre-assessment. My son is finally getting the hang of using his iPad. I have the chance to be with my kids and teach my children, and that's exciting to me. I thought this one was really interesting. My kids are not as exhausted as they typically have been at the end of in-person days. So far, it's not too bad. And I'm glad that our son is engaged in our classwork, and then his teacher is great and doing a good job engaging the kids, and we were able to have him learn remotely, thus reducing the exposure to COVID. So I want to start with those celebrations. Now, the website that I was talking about. So this is on the landing page. There's a menu at the top of my landing page called UCS client page. I'm going to take us off PowerPoint for a moment. So when you're on that page, now can you see the website? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Yay, perfect. So this is where we're going to house our videos and resources. There's an introductory paragraph. Want to point out two things, or actually one main thing in the introductory paragraph. There's a link to a Google Doc. And so this will be a parking lot for any questions that you all have. They can be general questions, or they can be related to a specific overarching question that we're going to have for our time together. This is yours, and no one's going to see it but our team and myself. So all questions go, and I'll be checking that a couple times a week. So you can access that from the client web page. I also posted, and I'll post again, the URL as well as the password. It is password protected. I've included a Google Calendar that has all of the opportunities for us to be together. Know that not every opportunity is going to fit every person, but from the data that Joy and I collected, we tried to create a menu of options around all the themes that we saw. And if you all know Google Calendar, you click on the event, it'll have the link. It has the bio of people who are going to be here as guest experts. And it'll also have kind of like the flow of the different sessions. And then there's descriptions. So we're going to be working together with virtual workshops. There are 3 of those, 2 that are specifically for caregivers and parents, 1 that is for the whole family. So we're going to have some time with kids, and then we're going to have some time just for the grownups. We're going to have 10 coaching sessions spread out throughout the next 3 months. Again, all of this is just opportunities for us to get together and learn and take home some strategies and tools that could help make your life easier, hopefully. The coaching sessions, we're going to use the flipped classroom model. So there's going to be a 10-minute video posted on this webpage ahead of time. And then the coaching session is going to be like drop in for the hour. So we welcome you to come for the whole hour if you're just needing to be around community and want to share a cup of tea with some friends and colleagues who are going through the same thing, or drop in for 5 minutes. And those are going to be recorded as well in case you miss those opportunities. And then we have 3 office hours. And the office hours, drop in if you have a question about that topic. So those are like a really light lift. Again, come for the whole time if you're just needing that community and want to be around some adults and problem solve, or just drop in for a few minutes. No guilt, whatever you can use, whatever you need, take. And then at the bottom, you'll see that there are already 2 videos for the coaching sessions we have coming up next. Joy, anything you want to add to that as far as logistics?
Nothing specifically other than, I hope folks feel comfortable and know me well enough that I appreciate feedback, and, Megan and I will try to do as much as we can to adapt. This is all about being able to provide resources. And, I think I tried to say, we're trying to find the best time that fits most people, but we really want to, make it resourceful. So I appreciate any feedback, thoughts, course changes, ideas. And I am trying to pull together a few people to kind of help, with other things that people have mentioned they wanted to do. But I'm always interested in making improvements.
Thanks, Joy. Yes, we love feedback. That's learning, right? It's circuitous. We get some data, we do some research, put something together, get feedback from our learners, and then adapt or adopt. And it's all about you all.
Megan, I did want to flag. So we at UCS, or most people, we use an asterisk in the chat to queue questions. So Marion has a question.
Thank you for translating. I always forget. So thank you. This is, holy cow, much more than I thought it would be. So thank you also in advance. I was wondering if the videos that are posted in advance of the sessions, is there some mechanism that will sort of ping us and prompt us to go watch?
Me?
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. So I mean, that's again one of those learning curves where I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, how do we inform you? How do I not spam you? So, I've been trying to decide, like, okay, should I make another all staff announcement? Should I just email the folks that signed up on the listserv? So, right now it's me, and I'm trying to send notifications without, like, I'll try to do it several days ahead of time so folks have a chance to watch it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's a really good question. As far as I know, I mean, Megan, we could maybe see if there's like a back end, like automation, like if this then that sort of thing, but we'll figure it out.
Great question. And my goal, Marion, would be to have the videos to you at least a week ahead of time. I know this, yeah, so that's the goal. And we're trying to keep with the videos to watch ahead of time, we're trying to keep them under 10 minutes, just being cognizant of everybody's time too. And I'll have audio. We could also look at like audio recordings if people are like, want to listen to it. Like washing the dishes or driving your kids to soccer if you're still doing soccer in your area. So those are all things we can get feedback on and figure out. And I love the asterisk thing, so cool. All right, let's dig in. So starting first with some big ideas to keep in mind. One, I feel like this just needs to be said, and I have to say this out loud to remind myself, you are not alone. And if you're wondering how many school districts went back remotely, 50% of school districts across the United States. So that's something good to have in mind, to know that your experience is kind of universal and that you are not alone. There have been some great articles that have come out about uncertainty. I feel like too, I'm going to put this out there to a room full of scientists and you're going to be like, I wrote that article. But the effects of uncertainty on our brains, especially having like 7 months of uncertainty, it's really doing a number on our brains and our bodies. One report that I read was looking at a study with brain cancer, with a brain cancer diagnosis and breast cancer patients. And they found that those patients actually had more anxiety and increased rates of, or increased amounts of cortisol before diagnosis than afterwards. So not knowing something, like not knowing when we're going to be able to go outside or go grocery shopping without being afraid for our kids, is really doing a number on us. So sometimes if you find yourself in a situation where you have a weird response to something, no, it just could be that. It's, we're in a little bit of fight or flight. We're having trouble concentrating. We have these high cortisol levels. An example would be when my 18-month-old, when her class was canceled for the year, I had this huge freak out about her backpack and what we're going to do with her backpack if she's not going to school. A backpack, right? It was like, it's totally a nonsensical thing, not a big deal. But in reflecting after the fact, I realized that little freak out that I had was probably due to all this uncertainty, and it just came out in a really strange way. I use this graphic with teachers, coaches, and principals. I think it's a great graphic too to use as a parent or as a caregiver. This is from Alina Aguilar, who is a reading coach guru out of California, Oregon. But these are spheres of control. And so we use this graphic organizer, and this is in a resource folder for you, so you'll have access to this afterwards. But sometimes if you just need to map out things that you can control, that are like in your direct power, like you have those things in your hands, things that you can influence. So you can't control them, but you've got some sway. You could work on them. And then everything outside of your control. This is a tool that we use in the education space when we just realize that there are things that are really getting under our skin, but we have to find a way to let them go because they are totally outside of our control. So this tool is available for you all as well. This is a tough one, even for teachers. Let go of trying to be a teacher. So this is a conversation just this morning in our house with the 16-year-old. And I would say out of the 3 kids we have in school right now, like she's doing the best with remote learning. She's got like really great executive functioning. She is super organized and responsible. She is just on stuff. We don't worry about her enough, right? It's always the kids that you think are doing well that's another parenting conversation. But this morning, Allie was crying because she has an English essay due. She has one due today. She has one due tomorrow. She has one due on Friday. And her dad's having this conversation with her. And he's like, I'm a teacher. Megan's a teacher. Your mom's a teacher. Like, we can help you. And Allie's just crying. She's like, no, I only want help from my teacher. That's the only person I'll get help from. And Allie's dad, my husband, is like, you realize like both me and Megan are like paid to write. Like that's part of our job. And she's like, no, you are not a teacher. I want my teacher. And so just something to think about too. I know you're being asked to do a lot in your homes right now. We all are. But I think we need, even those of us who are teachers, we have to let go of trying to be the teacher. And maybe that means helping our students, our kids, find better lines of communications with their teacher in order to ask those questions to alleviate some of their stress and alleviate some of our stress. Maybe this one in the spheres of influence, maybe this is things we can influence, but we can't control. I want to mention too, I've been in education for almost, 17 years. I've worked in public education. I've worked at the University of Central Florida. I've worked at Mount Holyoke College. Now I teach adult learners in a graduate program. The big thing about learning is that learning is not linear. It doesn't happen in this neat sequence. And why I'm mentioning that is about any fears that we have as parents or caregivers about gaps in our kids' learning. There was a study that came out from the Northwest Evaluation Association, NWEA. Do you all know them? You probably like work with them. You totally do. Well, if this was your study, kudos. But I want to mention it for a purpose. So I read this, and then on Facebook, like my circle of educator friends who are parents were like kind of freaking out about some of this data. Our kids are going to be behind. I'll give you a moment to read the slide, and then I'll tell the anecdote. So we read this and had like a mild freak out. And it took a Zoom session and a couple glasses of wine between educator moms before we came to the realization that learning, we just need to be reminded that learning is not this linear, beautiful, sequential, neat process. It's circuitous, it's messy. And even though we're afraid that our kids are going to have gaps, they're going to be okay, because the way learning happens, it doesn't happen neatly in prepackaged first grade, second grade, third grade. In fact, maybe this is an opportunity to kind of bust out of our traditional way of thinking about this is what we should learn in first grade, this is what we should learn in second grade, and allow our kids to really learn in a way that's more developmentally appropriate. So just want you to remember that learning is not linear and your kids are going to be okay. Realize that you are present for moments you might have otherwise missed. So I'm a bit of a Pollyanna. I'm a realistic Pollyanna, but this was one of the silver linings I found of being at home and working at home. My husband and I used to travel a lot for work. We both really love traveling, but it meant missing a lot of family time, missing a lot of family dinners, and missing moments with our kids. We were both supposed to be gone in April. It was about Cora's almost her 12-month birthday. And we ended up both being home because yay, COVID. And we got to be home for this moment that happened in my house. Come here, let's do it. Come on. Oh, yay! You did it! Yay! So we were present for a moment that we might have otherwise missed. We got to see Cora's first steps. So if you're ever having a moment where you're feeling like so over it, and we all have those moments, maybe that's a good sticky note to post up somewhere above your office space, your desk, to look at and think about those moments that you're able to be there for now that you might have missed if you were going into the office every day. So mama guilt. Who has mama guilt here in the room? Like so much mama guilt. So again, looking at a room full of scientists, does anybody research guilt? Parenting guilt, mama guilt? So I started digging in some of the research around this idea of mama guilt, and it actually is kind of scary as it relates to anxiety and depression. So two quotes that I want to show you that come out of a study from the University of Washington. Women who expect that work and family life can be satisfactorily combined without many trade-offs may be more likely to feel they are failing when they struggle to achieve this ideal. So this idea that if you try to do everything and expect it to all work together, you're going to feel like you're failing. I can relate to that. And from the same study, the guilt over not being able to manage the work-family balance and frustration over the division of household labor also could play roles in the increase of depression symptoms in the supermom group. So I'm just mentioning that to allow yourself some self-compassion and realize that if we are trying to be a super caregiver, a super mom, to be really great at work and to be really great at parenting and to do it all, that we could have increased signs of anxiety or depression. So something to think about. And this was a question directly from the pre-assessment that someone put in as something they hope to get out of this time together. And we do have a whole session, a coaching session on this idea of division of labor and mama guilt. So know we have time just for that coming. but this question stuck out to me. How do I keep up the mental, physical energy to work full time and teach our kids part time? It's a lot of energy, right? So this graphic is from James Clear. He talks about this idea of the 4 burners. And I first read about this in a David Sedaris piece in the New Yorker. And I have that on your resource list for you to read also. But in this Sedaris piece, Laugh Kookaburra, he talks about this idea of the 4 burners and how we have a health, work, family, and friends burner on top of our stove. And if we want to turn up one, we have to turn down another. It's almost like, we're buckets, and we only have a certain amount of capacity before it just becomes empty. So I want you to think about that burner, and think about those days or those times like right now when we're having to turn up the family burner a bit more, and know in order to make that happen, we might need to consciously turn down, hopefully not the health burner, but one of those other burners, in order to not burn ourselves out. So I want you to sit with that, and I don't have an answer, but just something to think about and keep in our minds about how we're using our energy, and how we want to save some of that energy for the people who matter most, which are our families. And when we are doing our best and feeling our best for our families, we're going to do our best and feel our best for our professions and at work. Set realistic expectations for everyone. NPR was reporting that women left the workplace in September at 4 times the rate than men did. I thought that was like super eye-opening. That was from the Labor Department. So schools serve 2 primary purposes: childcare and education. So think about that as you're trying to do everything in your house right now. It's really hard to do childcare, education, and then our jobs and self all on top of that. And then also, I'm sure you've seen this data about how much people are working, how many hours they're working now that they're working at home. US employees working more hours during COVID-19 pandemic. I've seen it between 3 and 4 hours a day more we as a country are working now since March. So think about what that does to our bodies, our brains, our health, our well-being. And then also, I loved this piece too. The pandemic has exposed the fallacy of the ideal worker. Maybe it just means we need to set more realistic expectations and think about the way we're using our pockets of work in order to be a really great worker, but it doesn't mean we need to be working 16 hours a day. Maybe this is a time in education, we have this infatuation with the Carnegie unit, like learning equates to seat time. Like kids must be seated in a seat in a classroom in front of a computer for this many hours a day in order to learn. Maybe we have that relationship with work too, and maybe this is time to rethink what it means to be the ideal worker. So processing pause before we get into those 2 buckets of our strategies. Questions, thoughts, comments. I'm taking us off screen share, and boom, now I can see all your faces.
So I put a comment in the chat. I'm Jonna. I have a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old for context. The burners was interesting. I only have 2 burners functioning at all right now. Like it is all family or work, and there's nothing else happening. So I guess I was curious, like, does everyone else feel the same? Or have you figured out a way to like do more than that, which would be amazing?
I generally feel the same, Jonna. I hear you. I will say I have one friend who through most of the whole COVID time I've gotten together with because she's going through a divorce and it's just a really rough time to be on your own. So we try every couple of weeks to just go for a walk on the weekends, and it's been just gives me that extra like friend / health time that feels really healthy. even though we're not supposed to be within 6 feet of each other.
Gretchen, you want to respond?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I like also felt that way, and then I recently like tried to give myself permission to be like, I'm gonna do this for me. Like it is not necessary, but I'm gonna drive to the further liquor store because they have more interesting things that I would like to drink and like do it. Just because like before that I'd feel guilty like just doing that, like because I'm like, oh, I shouldn't like take that, take that long. And then like seeing people like, I'm now like a couple $100 invested in like outdoor things so I can see other humans like with like a fire pit, and we brought a projector and like things to just be outside, and like that's been like helpful, I think, for like general coping. Also a good one, Jenga.
I'd encourage you, any kind of guilt you feel, this is so much easier said than done. So like, I'm going to say this, but I don't always practice it. Any guilt that you feel taking care of yourselves, you've got to let go. Just because the better off you are, the better off you are with your kids. Like if you're happier and healthier, they like that trickles down to them. So go to the further liquor store, do it. Don't feel guilty.
We could probably have a conversation about whether that's good or bad on the health burner, but
that's another session. That's at the church later tonight.
So the article that you shared about the number of hours going up, that like that's not me. And it sort of really hit home just how different my situation is from that of many in my in the development department. When we had a retreat, a Zoom online retreat, which I don't remember, Kyosha, maybe you don't remember, anyway, it was early on, it was like, April or May or so. And we had this scale and people had to rate their productivity and where they are. 5 being like, just killing it, I work all day, like I could do this forever. And 1 being like, Clover, how do I even get through this? And there were only 3 people out of a team of, I don't know, 30 or 40 people, only 3 people at the 1, and like this huge cluster towards the 5. And I just like wanted to cry because it made me feel so guilty and so just like I'm not pulling my weight here. And like Marie, I had sort of started a little longer than 2 weeks ago, but I started in January, so I also didn't make a lot of connections, didn't know a lot of people, and almost more importantly, people didn't know me. And so the me that they got to know was this person who like always had little people crawling up 2 and 5. Little people crawling all over her, and it just like that to me was one of the hardest things, to just separate the like my professional identity and like sense of self and what I can do, what I know I can do, but my colleagues don't know that yet because I haven't had a chance to show them. And so I really like the burner idea, and that's what I just had to say to self, like, this is not, they're just gonna have to trust me. Like, they hired me and I'm gonna provide them with value, just not today. And yeah, so the problem with my little theory is that the longer this goes on, the harder it gets to justify. Anyway, I also, I'm gonna stop talking in a second, but I escaped to Germany. As Megan and Kyosha know, I'm from Germany. My parents actually took the kids and took care of them. And my mom, who's a superhero, did everybody's laundry and made food for everybody. And it just was like, it makes me cry just thinking about it. And I had this opportunity to actually do work, and it felt so good. And that, like, somehow I need to recreate that without my mom. So.
Marion, I just want to say how much I relate to you on that, because I think coming in as a supervisor to a team that has no kids whatsoever, and the lack of trust that they have in me, because all they see is, at the time when I started, was not even a 1-year-old. And just, she was always with me. She's always in my lap. My kids are like every 5 minutes coming in saying, what can I eat? Like, you feel like they're looking at you like, do you ever feed your kids? Because every 10 minutes they're like, I'm hungry. And, it's just, and on top of that, like, I'm usually like a really, really strong worker. Like, I've implemented 3 systems since I've been here, but that's not like, I know I can do more. And I'm sitting here like, am I even, like, do they even consider that I'm being successful in my role? Like, and on top of that, my team doesn't even really know me that well. So that's been even worse, like, and especially all the stuff that's going on within UCS, like, which just has my head spinning. But in to Germany, I'm a military brat, so I actually grew up was in Germany as well. So definitely hear you there.
So it's really refreshing to hear so many people have similar experiences. I've been at UCS about a year now. Oh, actually a little bit over a year, and I think I'm the only one. I don't have a team in my department, so and I work for someone on the executive team. So my job is I have to be timely in my response. I have to get things done, and I feel the pressure of churning out work, but then I know in the back of my mind, I'm gonna actually have to complete that task at 8 p.m. tonight. I'm already thinking about what the I know I was at a conference all day today, and I'll be at the same one on Wednesday and Thursday. And even though I set a automatic reply saying I'm going to be slow to respond, I still feel the pressure that they're like, is she really at the conference all day, or is she dealing with her children? It's always, it's a lot of in my own head. And I'm trying to figure out how much of that is actually true, because even when I was to be honest, even when I was in the conference, I checked out. I was there like live and direct, but I checked out mentally because I actually got to sit at my son was not as busybody. I have a 2-year-old, and I have other children who are a little bit more manageable, but my 2-year-old is showing up everywhere. And maybe because I wasn't actually speaking and I didn't really have to engage, he let me listen to the conference. So that was like a break. Doesn't that sound crazy? That was a break for me, that I'm at work taking a break. I'm listening, I'm trying to absorb the information, but I'm like, this was really nice. This was great. Like, I'm not answering any, this was great. So I don't know. It's the balance of trying to do my job, trying to continue to be a great mother, trying to take on more responsibility so that I am not bored. That's another thing. If I'm bored, or if I can get it done quickly, then I'm like, I'm in my head about that. I'm like, am I even in the right place work wise? Like, it's just all these things compiled on my head all the time. That's what I grapple with. So thank you for letting me share. I know that was a lot of information, but there you go.
I feel like we're really hard on ourselves as women because we feel like we've got to do it all and do it all great. and I think if there's a piece of like letting that go, like pandemic, there's a pandemic right now. And yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but I really appreciate you all being so open and having conversation about that. Yeah, but I think one thing I know is that trying to do it all and be the best at everything does lead to burnout. That's where your health burner is like all the way down. And then we can't do anybody any good.
Yeah, but I also just like really feel the weight of like, it's women who are going to do that. It's women who are going to like be like, I can't do it all. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to step back, do some self-care. And like, I'm just really fucking pissed about that. Like, men aren't doing that. They don't have that headspace. So they can just like do their normal work. And like, that's why that jobs report has 4 times the women leaving. And like, I don't know. Like, I just, I guess I'm willing to burn out is what I'm saying. Like, I'm unwilling to like concede that, like it's not fair. Like, it's bullshit that like this whole group is women and we're all like, oh yeah, like maybe we'll like not put less pressure on ourselves. And like, I'm just not willing to step back. And I don't know what to do about that because like we can't just like turn it into like yelling at men at work or in our lives. But like, it's just like, that is like, a big problem here.
Gretchen, that was like a really great segue because I'm going to give you some tips so you can try to do it all.
Great.
Also realizing, lean in. Joy, just realizing that it's 8:57. I'm happy to stay on, but also know that some people probably were thinking that 9 o'clock was like it. So are we good? I'm here till 9:15. I don't have to go to my next workshop till 9:15. So I invite you to stay or we'll be recording it. But yeah, I'd love to share some strategies so we can learn ways to get this done or let it go wherever you're at. All right, so a few tips and strategies for doing it all, staying productive, and supporting our kids. Have you all heard of this book by Cal Newport, Deep Work? So it's one that I just started reading. And there was a question in the pre-assessment. Someone said, I never have a chance to 100% focus on work for any length of time. I'm always either getting interrupted, making sure the kids are in meetings, helping with snacks or meals. It made me think of this book, Deep Work, which I haven't read for a while, but I'm rereading. But it talks about this idea of focus and work and what happens when we are too distracted or multitasking. And for those of you who are interested in the book in 3 sentences, it's the ability to focus without distraction. Shallow work is non-cognitively demanding, logistical work, and deep work is like a superpower with productivity. So I keep thinking, I have this question that keeps playing in my head, like how can I schedule chunks of time for that deep work? Bye, Christy. Bye, Kiosha. So I keep thinking about this. How can we think about scheduling things with our kids at home and with work so we do have these larger chunks of time so we can be more productive and focus on deep work? So looking at scheduling, this is from Stacy Mogul, who's an assistant principal at a school in South Florida. So this is an example of what her schedule looks like. And she has I think her daughter's 3.5. So she uses like pictures within the schedule. So her daughter knows what's happening. She makes sure she has breaks in the day to play with her daughter and to learn through play. And then you'll see in the 3rd row, 9 to 9:40 for independent activity. There's like a little chart there. That's something called a choice board, which you're going to look at earlier, which is a way to kind of structure independent time to give your child choice and also to give you a little bit of that time to get some work done for independent time, even with younger kids. And there's a picture of her schedule a little bit closer up. letting kids develop the schedule with you is a great strategy. When they can develop that with you, they have ownership, they're going to buy in more to it. I wanted to point out a couple things with these two schedules in particular. One, I love like the setting of intention and plan for the day. That works for some people. That's the chart on the, or the schedule on the left. Works for some people, doesn't work for others, but I thought that was a unique piece. I think adding the caveat that there's screen-free academic time was helpful. And then the chart on the right, it's a homeschool schedule of a teacher and their child. But I think it's also really interesting to see the schedules side by side. So you have your schedule, the kids' schedule, but then they know too what you're doing at certain times. So they know, they might have a better sense of when they can interrupt, when they shouldn't interrupt, and what's going to happen next. It helps things work a little bit smoother. Don't think too your schedule that you have up has to be like anything on Pinterest. I like the intentionality of this chart. There's humor. They've put in some times for socialization, which is really important for our kids to interact with other kids. Whatever you're comfortable with, maybe kids in your bubble or with Zooming or some kind of a FaceTime or video conferencing. I like the socialization in that schedule. And also, you know, setting those boundaries for work time so they have set blocks that they know they're aiming for, which makes the schedule a little bit more intentional. I would encourage you to think about scheduling everything. The two photos here are things that I'll try to schedule in my day that sometimes is really helpful just to remind myself that I need to do so I'm not sitting. Picture on the left. Sometimes I'll write like on my schedule for the day, get up and look outside. Because if it's there, I'm a person, I really like to cross things off my to-do list. And if it's there, I feel good crossing off my to-do list, but I've also gotten up and looked outside. Also scheduling walks. Something I like to do, if possible, is schedule a time where I can have a phone call for work or something, but I've got Cora in the wagon, so I'm working and walking at the same time if it's something I don't need to do face-to-face. Scheduling movement breaks. Does anyone feel like they're moving enough right now? No, I feel like my bottom has just gotten like wider and wider from all the sitting that I'm doing. And the teacher in me really worries when I see my kids sitting all day long. They have gym class, but they're missing those times to move around a classroom, switch classes, recess, those opportunities to get up and move. And I'm thinking of a US Department of Health and Human Services report from a few years ago that talks about being sedentary for long periods of time can have long-term effects, health effects on our bodies. So here are 3 different strategies that you could think about trying with your kids. The one on the left is from, oh my gosh, it's from parents.com, and it's a monthly calendar where as a family you could try different things related to movement or health. The one in the middle is a sensory motor scavenger hunt, and that's from the Inspired Treehouse. Yeah, voice to text while watching your kids is your favorite. I also recommend for a laugh, have days when you can't correct anything voice to text. You just have to send it. Makes everybody laugh. And then on the right is a movement choice board. So think about ways to get up and get moving and get your kids up and get moving. I know too that where I am in Western Mass, my kids are Zooming from 7:55 till about 2 p.m. with a few short breaks in between. And so I have 2 kids with ADHD. And what we've encouraged them to do is work out a signal with the teacher. It's a signal that just that my kids and the teacher know that means they need to get up and move. So maybe they're walking around the house with their laptop. Maybe they're like, they turn off their camera and they go like run around the house, but they have like a movement break because they just need to get up and get moving. And I know there's a University of Texas study that talks about these physical activity sprints and how they can be really good if we're sitting during long periods of time. Anybody familiar with Go Noodle? Yep, I see some heads shaking. So check out Go Noodle. I used it in the classroom and kids love it, and it's free, but there's all kinds of activities, songs that kids can do in little short breaks. Maybe you have a choice board where kids have all different, like we were just looking at, where they have different types of movement. Maybe this is one of those options on your choice board. And something I really like as someone who loves language arts and reading and writing is a lot of the songs, they have printouts of the actual words, which is really great for comprehension, fluency, and just helping our kids become better readers. So check out Go Noodle. I won't make you get up and do a dance, but I was thinking about it. I totally would, because I taught 4th grade. That's the way I roll. Oh, that's a good yeah. So thanks for putting the link in there, Joy. Sorry, I'm trying to moderate the chat box and see your faces at the same time. Schedule quiet time. It's one of those things in my house that if we don't actually put it down in writing on a schedule, it doesn't actually happen. It's really easy just to get pushed to the wayside. But if our brains are constantly on, especially our kids' brains, they're on Zoom, they're reading, they're working, they're writing, they're talking. They need scheduled downtime to just experience quiet. Not watch YouTube, not binge watch Netflix, just experience quiet. And so this is a conversation I would recommend you have with your kids. Just talk about what they like to do to experience that quiet. Maybe it's puzzles, swinging outside, playing a board game. For me, it's like just sitting still for 3 minutes with a cup of tea, or depending on the time, a glass of wine at night. But carving out intentional time really makes sure it happens. And you can also schedule that as like family time if you're looking a way to connect with your kids or your family, but you might not want to see them. You might want to have that independent quiet time. We're seeing a lot of our families right now. Sorry, I have a really warped sense of humor. This is from one of my former assistant principals. She is running a homeschool now and recommends carving 30 minutes out of your workday for that intentional play with your kids. So instead of feeling guilty constantly about not spending time with your kids, or that like struggle between work and being a parent or being a mom, go ahead and schedule that time in. It'll give your kids something to look forward to, and it'll give you something to look forward to also. And I love this quote from Tanya Holmes Sutton. The best inheritance a parent can give their children is a few minutes of their time each day. And Justin Minkle, who's an Arkansas Teacher of the Year, his quote for you all was this idea of unstructured play. There's so much great research around the power of unstructured play. Even with like teenagers and adults, the power of just having time to be silly and laugh and be creative. So schedule that time for unstructured play and sunlight. Why we still have it here in Massachusetts before it gets too cold. I know some of you all are in Massachusetts, right down the road from me. And then he also has a digital library of free books that he recommended, which is Get Epic. And you'll have access to all the slides afterwards too. So don't feel like you have to write that down. And I wanted to end this little play section with this quote from James Lee Himes. Play builds the kind of free and easy, try it out, do-it-yourself character that our future needs. So in our classrooms, if there's a silver lining, so much of what happens in our classrooms in public and in some cases private school it's so structured and rigorous and scheduled that we as teachers kind of lose the time for play, which is really important for our kids. So maybe this is an opportunity for us as parents to put that really purposeful time back in our kids' schedule and help them learn in ways that they should be learning through play. There's also great research about the power of picture books. So I've not only used them when I taught preschool and mommy and me classes, but I use them with college students, and I use them with graduate students who are veteran educators now. But this tip comes from Leanne Erickson, who you all will meet this Thursday. She'll be at our 8 o'clock office hour. But her family, at the end of the day, they have a time where they each pick a book, and they come together and they share their picture books. And that's a way for their family to unwind. And I thought that was a great idea. So it's something that we've tried to implement with our reluctant teenagers. But we have a 1-year-old, so we can calm them in because we're like, it's for Cora. So scheduling video conference check-ins with grandma, friends, older cousins, and college students. So when my daughter's 1-year-old class was canceled this year, I decided that I was going to learn how to do a Montessori preschool. So I've been taking classes. We have our neighbor and my daughter and their caregiver. Their caregiver and I are taking these classes together. And so we have a classroom, or they're in our house, for this little 2-person Montessori preschool. The 5-year-old sister of Elodie walks in today from her kindergarten experience. So she's actually like in-person kindergarten. They have 10 students. It's an outdoor kindergarten. And she comes in, and all Elodie can talk about is that it's Tuesday. So she gets to read with Oma on FaceTime on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So her mom has scheduled time with the grandmother for 30-45 minutes, and they're working on reading the chapter book together. But then that gives the mom, Katrina, some time to do and schedule her Zoom meeting. So it's a good way to connect, socialize for a child. They get really excited about it, but then also gives parents a chunk of work. So think about who you could bring in to FaceTime with your kids. Maybe report out homework, share a book, share ideas. Utilizing audiobooks and podcasts can carve out extra caregiver time. Also, as someone who loves, I was mentioning, I love reading and language arts. These are great ways for kids to read. And yes, totally. Listening to an audiobook, listening to a podcast counts as reading. So think about building some of those in for your child. I love Storyline Online. That's a great resource if you're not familiar with it, but they have celebrities read picture books and share why they like that picture book. So it's a great free resource. I feel like I'm gonna do a audible here and move through the processing pause and get to independent work time. It's late. Are you okay with that? Supporting independent work. I had the evil laugh from the beginning of Thriller, like keyed up to play on my phone, but my phone died. But insert that wah, ah, 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 laugh here, independent work. So in a classroom, as a teacher, we would have signals for our kids so they would know that we couldn't be interrupted. And so I'd encourage you to think about what that is. Maybe it's as simple as having a sign that you're in a meeting in progress. In class, when I was meeting with guided reading groups for an hour and 15-ish minutes, I would have a hat on. They knew if Miss Allen was wearing the hat, they didn't come interrupt me. You might not be comfortable wearing a hat when you're like Zooming with your team. But maybe that there's a way you could work this out with your kids and develop some kind of a signal or a sign so they know that you can't be disturbed. And in classrooms too, have you seen like the red cup, green cup? So if the green cup's up, they can come and ask you a question. If the red cup's up, you can't be interrupted. So think about what kind of signal you want to have with your kids that can allow you to have some of that uninterrupted time. But there are those times when they just have a question and they need to put it somewhere. And in a classroom, we use something called a parking lot. And so I would encourage you to think about having a space where if your kids are old enough to write, or maybe you have them draw a picture of a question or a thing that they just need to tell you, and they can put it in the parking lot. And then when you're done with your uninterruptible time, then you can address that question. But that's a way to honor the fact that your kids do need something. if it was like in my meeting today with the 13-year-old, he wanted to know, would I rather eat a moldy cheeseburger or a piece of pizza found on the street run over by cars? That was like the thing he had to tell me. But then it's important to our kids, right? So give them a place to put that so you can come back to it and honor the fact that they needed something of you or wanted to tell you something. This is from Jennifer Walker, who was an Ohio Teacher of the Year, who is now a curriculum director for a district. I love seeing people's like families interact in the back. Hi, Marion's person. But I had to revisit that this week. So with so many people in our house, and our house was built, many of you live in Massachusetts, we have like that tiny little weird house built in the late 1800s where the rooms are like this big. And so we're trying to figure out where to put everybody to Zoom. And so the 13-year-old who shares a room with his brother was like, I'll just work in the living room, it'll be fine. Well, we had to revisit this idea today. Kids need a space that's designated for working. That's like their space. So it helps them make that transition. It's a signal that it's time to learn. So just consider how you could create that space for your kids. And it could be like a mobile space too. It doesn't have to be like a firm space. It could be a space that they set up that they carry in their backpack. So I love this tip, especially living with tweens and teens. But our kiddos do not automatically come with executive functioning skills like time management. And when a bunch of tasks are coming from a bunch of directions, it can be overwhelming and anxiety inducing for adults too. Lists and calendars are a kid's best friend. Help them create a list of the jobs to be done, break down big jobs, and time they think each task will take, and then have them plug those into a schedule that is manageable. So thinking about, in my house right now, like our kids are in middle school and high school, so they're getting emails from all different teachers in all different directions. Our school hasn't synced it up yet to where they're not getting all this information. So we're finding that we're having to sit down with them and break up these tasks step by step to help them think about time management and how they're going to get everything done when they do have that independent time, which for us is on Wednesdays, half a day Wednesdays. So this is one idea for breaking down routines step by step. In the classroom, we have charts for routines, we have how-to posters, and we have anchor charts. We make these with our kids and they stay up until things just become routine and they have them in their head. A story of why this is important. In my house the other week, the 15-year-old came back from football practice. Sean, did you shower? So he goes up, comes back down in like 30 seconds. And his hair, like he's kind of wet, but it's been 30 seconds, right? I'm like, Sean, did you shower? He's like, yeah, I showered. I'm like, did you use soap? And he's like, no, I just got in the shower. You didn't say to use soap. I'm like, did you wash your hair? He's like, no, you said just take a shower. You didn't say wash your hair. So things that we think are like automatic, sometimes we really need to break down step by step for our kids. And in the classroom, we spend a lot of time at the beginning of the year helping our kids break down these tasks. And then it makes this front loading makes things really easier down the road. So some examples of things that kids don't automatically know how to do that we might need to teach them step by step: how to log into Zoom, how to fix yourself a snack, how to put the dishes in the dishwasher the right way. I hope my husband reads that one. How to get your attention, how to sharpen your pencil. But just think, maybe these are things you can, sit down, have a conversation with, maybe just one a day, and create steps with your kids on a sticky note. And then they have that sticky note that's right beside them, so they know the steps to log onto Zoom. And if your child is a pre-reader, pictures or photos can work really well for these charts. Our kids don't automatically know expectations, but we need to teach them exactly what it looks like and sounds like to work independently. It's kind of a vague term, right? Work independently, but like, what does that mean? In the classroom, it's our job as teachers to teach our kids exactly what that means for different situations and for different skills. So that's going to apply to your home now with the remote learning world. So one example of how we can do this was creating a T-chart with looks like and sounds like. So we sit down with our child or children. We talk about, okay, maybe it's working independently on an assignment. Maybe it's reading a book quietly. What does it look like? What does it sound like? What are your eyes doing? What's your body doing? What, you're really breaking this down, and then you're putting it somewhere where your kids can see it so they have that reminder. But we just need to make sure we're not assuming that our kids know what it means to work independently, but we really need to teach them and scaffold them. We need to start with our expectations. Our kids can't do what they don't know. First day of remote learning in our house, I see the 13-year-old down like this. Joy, I was telling you this story the other week. He's down like this, and I can see he's zooming with his class. And the sound's coming through the computer, but he's got his hair like over his face and his hand over his ear. You know what's coming, right? I'm like, Colin, are you listening to your class? He's like, yeah. I'm like, you're listening through your computer? It's like, yeah. It's like, do you have an AirPod in? He goes, yeah. Kind of pushes his hair back. There's his AirPod. I'm like, what are you listening to on your AirPod? And he's like, YouTube, Jeffy videos. And he's like, well, you didn't tell me that I couldn't have my AirPods in during class. And I'm like, okay, kind of fair. Like the expectation wasn't there, but just know it's there now. You may not have your AirPods on when you're in class. Like these are things we have to talk to our kids about in the classroom. And now that the classroom's your home, you're going to have to talk to your kids about these expectations and be really, really clear. Tweens and teens especially love to find the gray area. They'll find the gray area of everything. We talked about how to create that how-to chart. Just because you've created a how-to chart and it's posted somewhere doesn't mean they're going to get it the first time. Remember, this idea of learning is circuitous. Reteach, review, reteach, review. So know it's going to be something you have to revisit. You're going to have to practice and use a timer. So in the 4th grade classroom, when I want to teach my kids to read independently for a length of time, I need an hour and 15 minutes to meet with my guided reading groups. Kids don't come in at the beginning of the year being able to read a book independently an hour and 15 minutes. So we start on like day 2 or 3 with 15 minutes. And I set a timer and I put it up so they can see. And then we graph that. And then the next day we set a goal for ourselves. Maybe they want to add 2 more minutes. Maybe our goal is 17 minutes. So timers can really help kids build up their ability to work independently. And then you can also weave in some math with the graphing there. And think too about how to start small and scale up. Like I was saying earlier, your kids aren't going to be able to work independently at the beginning on their own, but it's something we need to teach them and scaffold them as the year goes on and as the weeks go on. So I was mentioning the remote learning choice board, or this idea of choice boards. If you Google choice boards, you can find a bunch. So this is an example of a self-directed choice board for times when learners need to keep themselves occupied, engaged, or entertained. Red cups up. I'm in a meeting. I'm going to be there for an hour. Your kids are like done with their assignment, which I'm finding sometimes they're done with stuff in like 3 minutes. And it's time to learn. So they can choose something from that remote learning choice board. And this is something that you've created with your kids so they have ownership and they know what each of these are. And again, if you have younger kids, you're going to be using photographs and pictures with this. In a classroom, something we use too are learning centers or learning stations. It's something our kids can do. Like here, there's an example of making shapes with pattern blocks they can do independently. If you're working on an activity, the way that you would set this up is you work with your child one-on-one with an activity a few times, and then eventually they can start doing it on their own. And then maybe you could set up 3 different stations around the room, and they could just go from station to station when a timer ends. Maybe it's like 10 minutes at each station, but that can be a way you structure more time for your work. And you could structure some really cool time for your kids. If you've got younger kids, you can create discovery baskets. I've put a big article in the resource file on ideas for kids 0 through 3. So it's just things that they can discover. Like my 1-year-old today was like really fascinated with cotton balls. Like she was putting them in, dumping them out, putting them in, dumping them out. So it can be just things around your house in a bin. Rotating bins and baskets, bringing them out maybe 2 or 3 a week so they're new. And then also something to remember if you have younger kids. So I learned this from my Montessori class, which I'm loving, but about why kids are climbing so much when they're little. That's how they're learning. That's how their neurons are connecting. Their vestibular senses are developing. So they're wanting to learn what it's like to stand up on top of their chair and balance. They also have senses developing, connecting their bodies and mind and understanding this idea of space and force and gravity. So think about how you could set up things for your kids to climb on safely. Of course, you would be there with them, but ways you can structure this learning for your younger kids in meaningful ways. So helping kids stay focused during independent time, I've got some links for you again in that resource folder. There's a great article, but having things that are squeezable, feel weird, make noise, light up are really great. Your kids can have them just in front of them. They could have them in their pocket. I had a 4th grader once, and for him, it was just having a quarter in his pocket that he could like flip over and over, and it helped him pay attention. Wiki sticks are really great. Doodling is really great. And then on the right, that's jewelry. So it's really great when kids are learning, are like teething and wanting to chew on things. And it's really great for older kids to help them pay attention. They can just chew on it. So a couple of ideas to help kids pay attention and stay focused. If you are going to have something where they're fidgeting, I would recommend a fidget contract. So you talk about when it should be used, when it should not be used, and you have some really clear expectations as a team. Flexible seating is great. So kids just need to move. Sitting is not great for kids, just like it's not great for us. So I put 2 options there that I thought were super cool. One is just like one of those yoga balls, but it doesn't roll all the way. It's got like little legs. Another one's one that you actually put in a seat. And I would say if you are thinking about flexible seating with your kids at home, expectations that how to chart. Otherwise, if they're like my kids, they could be, throwing their flexible seating at their brother. And that's clearly not something that they would do on the expectation. So just have those conversations ahead of time with your kids, because they will try those things. Also reflect with your kids on what's going well and what's hard. I posted some discussion questions. For me as a parent, it works better, especially with the teens and tweens, to have conversations not across from each other. There's like a weird power dynamic that happens like across the table, but side by side, and thinking about how you could answer these questions as well, not just expect your kids to answer the questions, but make this a conversation. And like Penelope was trying to show us and tell us earlier, like kids have really great ideas about what we should do and what we should not do as parents. We just sometimes need to shut our traps and listen to them. So this would be a great opportunity to listen to what your kids need. And don't be afraid to use incentives. Create an incentive chart. Don't feel bad about it. Don't feel guilty about it. And they can be really fun things. Choose a game to play with. Maybe you're making a menu board of all incentives that they can work towards. Playing a game with your family, choosing your mom's hairstyle for the day, picking a dinner menu item, having a cooking lesson, donating money to a favorite cause, an origami lesson. So this is a conversation you can have with your kids and write down. And in those moments when you need an incentive, and there will be those moments, you can pull up that chart and at least in my house, try not to lose your cool. Sometimes I lose my cool, and that's like a way to not lose it. It happens. Hi, Tanner. All right, so that was a lot. And we're at 9:30. An hour and a half. That's it. Now you know everything there is to know. How are you feeling?
Good. I think there's actually one of the things that I definitely struggle with my 7-year-old is the time management. Like he has no sense in time. So I think tomorrow morning, because we're always scrambling to get out the door. So I think tomorrow morning I'm going to put timers on for him.
Yeah, and ask him how fast he thinks he can do it, and then put it up somewhere. And the next day, ask him if he thinks he can do it even faster.
Yeah.
And then allow him mulligans too, because sometimes we all have those days we just can't get out the door.
Yeah. Well, he takes like an hour and a half to get ready. So.
Well, I don't know. You're witnessing like my key problem, which is that this is the older one, and he takes a nap at preschool, which he's going to preschool, which is great, but it means he is not tired until 11 p.m. So we get 0 time without him conscious, and it is like such a strain on quality of life. And I can't be that mad because he's just not tired. But
Does he have to take a nap? I'm sorry, I'm gonna push back.
yeah, no, I know. We can try again. Before she was kind of like, well, I could try, but like he like usually falls, he's like first to fall asleep. But he's like almost 5. So like, and on the weekends, like we just don't nap him because we don't want to deal with that. But
Yeah. I had the
yeah, I can
opposite.
try.
Penelope stopped napping early.
That seems
and
also bad.
It was pretty bad. But yeah, so that's why I always also kind of ask the question like, well, can't they stop him napping and give him like a quiet activity instead? Because we also had the problem where she, when she was really little, needed a third nap and the daycare person wouldn't give it to her. And so, like 6 months, 7 months old or something. So that's why I'm always like, push back.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry.
at this point, I'm like willing to pay her to not nap him. Like, I
Right?
will give you extra money if you like. So, yeah, maybe like we should try that. I kept
Especially
thinking it
if you
would.
tell her he's not going bed till 11 p.m. at night. We need to
Yeah,
figure
and then it probably just perpetuates like because then overnight he's not getting sleeping as
exactly.
long.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or slowly wake him up earlier. I don't know. See, now I'm problem solving. I'm sorry.
He wakes up early enough. No,
Oh
it's good.
no.
No, it's good to think about other ideas because we have not been successful.
But I think this is your point, Gretchen, about the napping and stuff is like it's stuff that we know and maybe we've tried, but we just had to try again and try in different ways. Like especially the choice board. Like we tried that in the spring and it didn't necessarily go well, but it did go well, like at least, daily telling Penelope, like, okay, I've got to call at this time, dad has to call at this time. You need to find time to do something yourself at that time, right? Like that worked, but the choice of like her deciding what to do, that didn't work. But it's a new year, so maybe we could go back and figure out, after school time, what does that look like? But I took a lot of notes for myself, and I appreciate all the different ideas, and also just like the simple things, right? Like I totally did not think about all of the structure that is being taught in school and at daycare that we expect, and now we have to somehow figure out, like, okay, and deconstruct, um, you know, the small things and figure out, like, okay, now I need to come up, maybe not a poster, but at least say, like, okay, you finished your reading. Here are some things to think about after your reading that she would do in class, but she's not necessarily getting that instruction to do that, but it's still expected, right? So
Yeah, or
I
like,
really
yeah.
appreciated thinking about that. Go ahead, Gretchen.
Oh yeah, you're right. I think it's just sometimes they need more like structure than because they're not going to tell you they need that, but it's clear.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time. Reach out to me at any time. Like I'm here for you all. I love talking about this stuff and figuring out because I'm in it too. So I could always use more thought partners. Um, and yeah, well, on Thursday, there's a coaching session with specifically for kids under 6. And the educator, the parent educator who's leading that one. It's amazing. And then after that, there's an office hour on working with kids independently at 8. And then Sunday, we have a life coach at 3:30 who's going to share some strategies about this idea of scheduling work time and kid time, and some tools for how to figure that out. Go pour yourselves a glass of wine or tea. Go take care of yourselves. Take a bubble bath. Do whatever you need to do. Do it.
Okay, thanks so much.
All right, bye everybody.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.